Hi, I just need to take a moment. Sorry. I haven't been recording anything for a while, and that's for many reasons, but there's always this time frame that I'm able to observe where it's not always so obvious, where I'm in a space of questioning, and I'm being questioned. So there is a mirror in my field that is questioning me. So it's myself questioning me, and it's like sticking holes in all belief systems, all concepts, all structures, all things that keep you safe in the moment, And so this has been in my hologram at the moment, and I laugh because not being online and moving through these structures has brought me to a space of looking at the absurdity of what we do and how we are as humans on this planet. And so I laughed in the beginning there because, I guess it was unexpected, and I feel like that's a very rare thing these days to witness, is just something that is real, not scripted, not in performance through a certain role and archetype that we play. Although inevitably at this point now, I am inevitably playing a role. And so I think we've come to this very interesting time in humanity where we're in such a mentalized process through moving through our awakening and becoming hyper conceptualized, naming things, seeing things for what they are, naming, identifying, labeling, sense making. And it's made us highly efficient and effective. We've become more efficient at dealing with the shadows and the projections of the outside onto us. And so we've attained a certain level of maturity, right? But with that comes a whole nother layer of observation, and this will forever be this way. We always have new things to learn. And so one of the things I'm observing is this resistance or hesitation to playing the game. And that might sound nihilistic, and it's not meant to be. What I mean by playing the game is doing the same thing over and over when you understand that it's a 100% survival-based actions that you are taking. You're also aware that the actions that you are taking to gain, through the survival strategy, so money exchange for living, you're also aware that these structures are shifting through the awakening process that is looking like chaotic distortions, and they are. And so we're in this time where, I don't know, I just feel like it's all masks are off. All masks are off, and that can make things uncomfortable because we're not used to that. And this is my observation at the moment. I'm in a mirror space with a being who is such a strong mirror reflection for me, and it's so powerful. I'm so grateful for the reflections and the teachings, but it's intense. It's intense. And so today I wanted to speak to a couple of themes that have come up with this being, and how I'm moving around it and the challenges that have transpired. So, essentially in the spiritual teachings that I move through, that which I teach, to those that come to my containers, those that co-create with me, I'm kind of speaking to a structure of which I call a 15th dimensional time matrix. I am alluding to that time matrix, or this solar system living within that time matrix, certain distortions having happened to it, and voila, we have what we have now, right? And there's other matrices happening at the same time. Each is sort of this energetic system that is vacuum cleaning as much energy as possible and sucking it up for its survival, right? And through this process, we are, so that's the system, right? We are simultaneously dropping all identities. But sometimes an identity and a role can keep you safe, and it almost always does. That's how the game is played. Any identity that you're wearing at any point in time is, look, there's many of them that are sabotaging us, but if we really look from the creational perspective, it's keeping us safe. Bearing in mind, some people feel that, you know, they've had darkness for so long that they don't know anything else. You know, take a drug addict, for example's sake, to not be on drugs is far more scarier idea when you're in the midst of addiction than going off of the drugs. So you'll rather stay in the darkness, even though you know it's turning your life upside down, etc., etc. So yeah, we have this phenomenon of over-identifying at the moment while simultaneously being aware and cognizant enough through this intellectual mentalization that we are doing that, and possibly having the experience within our spiritual path to know that we're moving through different bodies of information, and that any new identity is keeping us safe. And we also know that the new identity needs to be felt, it needs to be witnessed, it needs to be seen, it needs to be experienced, like riding a new car, you know, or taking a different bus route. It's a completely different experience. So you've got to sit in it. And so that structure, that identity for that time is holding you until you move through another shift, you know, and another shift in your reality field, and that dissolves, and you're like, oh, Jesus, I just got to understand that one. And so we're evolving at this very quick rate. And so we've got these soul aspects that are learning through these identities. And then we have what we recognize within ourselves at a certain point in time. And for me, to hold the safety, we've got a label for that. And for someone like me who is, let's say the label is, I'm going to use this because I feel it's probably more of a collective reference of me from the outside in. I'd say like spiritual guide, right? And that's quite a dangerous identity to be carrying around at the moment. Although all identities are. Politicians are under the microscope, scientists are under the microscope, bankers are under the microscope, spiritual leaders are under the microscope, mums and dads are under the microscope, kids, everybody is under the microscope. But I think, and of course I'm biased here, right? Because this is my reality. So my next statement is going to be, but I do think being a spiritual guide at this point is particularly trepidatious because we really are at a point where we're questioning what it means to be human. We're questioning what and who is God. We're seeking salvation. A lot of us, a big portion of the population, we're seeking salvation outside of ourselves. So of course that salvation comes in the form of creation stories of God, of Jesus, of Muhammad, of prophets, of the second coming, of the this and the that, and the Galactic Federation, and all of these constructs created by the ego outside of oneself. Why? So that we can hold the identity of victim and be saved by something, right? And so I alluded to the state of labeling myself as a spiritual guide. And because these times are so big, how dare we as spiritual guides perhaps question our reality? And we know we've gotten here because we've questioned everything, because we've gone against the grain. We're at enough of a mature place within our evolution to understand the patterns within the game, some of us, right? And so the pattern would dictate, like I said, moving into an identity, getting comfortable in then that identity, integrating it, releasing all the trauma from that, dying, letting that identity die, and then raising into the next octave of another identity or frequency. So we can say we've become accustomed to this. There's a certain sense of mastery. We can see the pattern. But yeah, so there's this particular aspect around spiritual teachers where, because of the collective shit that's been transpiring within our communities, it's it's a dangerous space to be and identify with. And the collective field at a certain level of consciousness can be smart enough to interrogate you. So here comes in the persecution wounds, etc., when another of moves into somewhat of an interrogation, knowing that their wounds are XYZ, and we've now got to honor this level of conscious engaged communication, and sit with your triggers, sit in self-accountability, sit in responsibility, understanding that all emotions and feelings coming up are just a projection from your ego, etc. And so this being in my reality has really been questioning me, and we've been at a loggerheads with regards to spiritual ideology, I guess, our personal ideologies, our personal belief systems. This is a construct of wording that is something that this being is not happy with identifying with, because if we know everything is a construct, then why would we even have a belief system? What is there to believe in when we know everything is being created at any point in time? So why would we even allude to having a belief system? And so there's been this interesting dialogue happening with regards to, so I will move into defense, or let's say a statement for myself to say, I'm not saying it's a belief system, because I've seen the pattern enough times to understand that all, or pretty much all, belief systems will get crushed and buried at some point in time. And all that is happening is that you're stepping into a new layer of experience. That's it, But simultaneously, he's been, frustrated at my lack of being able to communicate what it is my belief system is, to use that word now, just for ease of reference. What construct am I working with at the moment? I will then say a 15th dimensional time matrix, of which and I always say, at my current level of consciousness, in my current state of identity, to the best of my capability, with the knowledge that I have, the traumas and the wounds that I'm still clearing, some that are conscious, probably a million more that are subconscious, bless us as humans, to the best of my capability, this is the construct I'm working with at the moment. And it's a 15th dimensional time matrix, of which we are in the pursuit of anchoring a 12th dimensional field, a frequency field and shield, like this beautiful, shining coat, an armor, right? But the armor doesn't need to be there, because you are it is you, and we move through all those programs. But to keep it simple, and then we say, what is that, what is the name of that 12th dimensional current? Okay, we call this the Maharata, right? and or the Mahara, you know, and we say, okay, well, why do you believe in this, etc., etc. Well, it's come across in my reality field based on how I correlate data. It makes sense that this has come to me. There's obviously a resonant frequency, and it's here to teach me something. Whether that thing is either way, it's unlocking an aspect of freedom for me, because it's either going to show me a distortion or it's going to show me the perceived gateway into nirvana, right? And when I say these things, it's so interesting, because when I say it to myself, as I have just said, now, all of what I'm saying makes sense to me. 100,000% sense. And then I might be asked a question like, what is the dimension? And I'll say, don't disempower yourself. What is the dimension? What is the dimension? How do we classify it? Is that because I'm afraid to answer it? No, my answer would be, it's a bandwidth of information that is resonating at a different frequency, that is feeding or interacting with you a different set of codes. It's encrypted differently. Its harmonic sequence is different. You are perceiving it differently. There's oscillation and vibratory rates that are changing. Your oscillation rate is increasing. Your vibratory rate is decreasing. Your part K and part Kim particles, your flash line sequences are switching on and off in a different way, so that your perception of this bandwidth of information is different to a different bandwidth of information. And so we would then say, well, how do we prove that? How do I prove that? And then I would say, in statements or defense for myself, because it often feels like I have to defend this in these types of conversations, I would say, well, because I feel it. Clearly, I am living a completely different reality, full stop, to a huge portion of the population. I'm experiencing it differently. I would use the English language and say, the veil has fallen down. I have seen, I have heard, I have witnessed, I have understood, and I have felt, through my unique electromagnetic field, through my unique gifts. Okay, great, that's a beautiful answer, but how does that prove that there are dimensions? Well, my friend, I would have to say in that moment, I don't know how to answer that question for you. I don't know. Perhaps a mathematical answer is required, and I have seen some genius shit out there that I didn't quite spend enough time on, because it's not my language, right? It's not my language. Mathematics is not my language. Frequency is more my language. And then we would obviously, and quite wisely so, that friend would bounce back and say, so then how do you believe your own story if you know that you cannot fully prove that there is a dimension? So yes, you've had a mushroom ceremony here and this experience there, and you've flown on dragons, and you're lucid in your dream space. And we say that these experiences are these things. We say that it is the soul doing this. We say that we traverse to the fourth dimension when we're in dream space. We say that 4D is filled with entities. We say that we have holographic technology coming through from alien species and through the time matrix that are sucking up our energy. But do we have proof of it? And when I'm speaking to people like this, it becomes very difficult for me for obvious reasons. One, my intellectual capacity, I guess, can totally understand why that person is asking the question, which would then perhaps activate some sort of wound in me that would perceive myself to be less intelligent, incapable of standing up for my own, the thing that I work in, the subject matter that I am engaged with for years, that which I call my niche space of interest, and there's parts of me that often feel like, well, why? I appreciate the level of questioning, and it's not that I don't go that deep, but there are an endless probability of questions one could ask themselves at any point in time to allow the thought process and the consciousness to work with. And so perhaps I just haven't asked those questions from the mathematical perspective, etc., etc. And then I would say, well, I felt this. This is what I teach. I teach about the feeling body. Everything else is I'm kind of picturing like a magnetism, like, it's like fluff coming to this magnet where you've heard this fluff, you've heard these things, you've heard these little bits of data left, right, and center, and you've been in this course with this person and this container with another person, you've read this from this glossary, and you've read this from this book, and you've now had XYZ conversations with GPT, and it's all this fluff coming together and coming into, being sucked in. And so we then create our story around that, right? And that's how it is. And where it becomes hard is we can say, but we have memory of it. And then that very wise soul and mirror will say, well, how can you trust that memory? And I would say, great question. This is something that I'm questioning. My point being is that we've come to this point where you cannot argue data on earth. There's no point until when you get to a certain space, and even it doesn't matter, a certain space. All exists, all is. The probability of perceptions is endless, it's limitless, it's boundless. And we've got to honor that within each other. And so it feels like we reach a state of, potential spiritual and intellectual bypass. So it's like, what is beyond this point? Beyond the point of knowing, beyond the point of labeling, beyond the point of sheer faith, because this is what my friend would say, is that, so you're saying it's a construct, but you cannot name the way in which the construct functions. Let's say like a universal law, like a law of polarity. What is the law behind what you are teaching? And I would then confidently say, well, it's the law of one, right? And then we would move into a discussion, well, then why do we have the dimensions, etc., etc., etc.? And I think, again, I appreciate dialogue. I appreciate it. I appreciate being in dialogue with people who are been moved around the the washing machine of spirituality, trauma, integration, all of it, and the humility that comes from that. I appreciate the high level intellectualized conversation, but it gets to a point where we're just trying to prove, and that feels very masculine to me. And what I often say to people is, please be reminded that I'm merely saying that at this point in time, at my current station of my identity, to the best of my capability in the now moment, based on pattern recognition of my life, I am in exploration of XYZ teachings, while simultaneously exercising the things that I've learned in the past, through my questing and trying my best not to fall into a trap, aware that there are traps around every corner, also simultaneously aware that the trap is merely there because of a victim-victimizer coding that exists, and also aware that definitely wounding is still there. So essentially you're saying, I'm trying my best here, friend. I'm trying my best here. I may not have all the answers how to describe a dimension in the way that you understand. You know, and this is a very, very important and powerful conversation, because, you know, within the freedom teachings or the Maharata, those aspects of data that are really truly trying to free us, we can come to the simple things, and it's, you know, the attributes and values of mastery. It's levels of grace, levels of compassion, self-discernment, self-care, respect, kindness, forgiveness, listening, presence. You know, it's these big frequencies. And yet the intellect, so the mind, and those of us on the path will know that the mind often solves very little. And so again, I would then answer, but I feel it, the feeling, the cognizance, and so we then move into potential gaslighting, right? And I could then move into a wound and say, I don't like to have these discussions. They seem to bring me or us into the frequency of conflict. Although I am in gratitude for the lesson and reflection of my inability to answer you correctly, but it's simultaneously digging at a little wound of persecution, and also on top of that, adding to me gaslighting myself in a time where safety is important. And what this speaks to is how so many things are happening simultaneously at one point in time. So as much as we seek the safety through the model of our interpretations, the bias of our understanding based on all of this fluff, we are simultaneously, obviously, because there's a resonant field, otherwise these levels of questions wouldn't be coming to you, or being, you know, you're being bombarded with it, for lack of a better word. Just speaks to the frequency of how it makes you feel, like bombarded with these questions. And, you know, this gaslighting that it brings, because, you know, you're like, wow, I'm teaching this, but the way I perceive how I teach is very, very good. In fact, it's one of the roles, identities, and archetypes that I feel that I'm most aligned to, that I do very well, that when I receive the feedback in my classes, in my group work, in my session work, that people I can feel, because that's my job as well, and here comes back the feeling body, I feel that people are attentive. I feel that their power is being returned to them at any point in time, and they are being reminded of their power at any point in time. I feel like my contractual work is strong, you know, pre-entry into work with me, not to make it too rigid, but that structure creates a very beautiful feminine space once we start doing the work, which creates the safety. And so inevitably what I'm saying is I feel like I'm a strong teacher. I feel like I know my subject matter. But when you're questioned with, you know, from left field, outside of your usual group dynamic, because remember, and all this video really is about is, dynamics, groupthink, evolution, you know, and I guess this is what I'm trying to share with my friend is like, thanks for pointing out to me that I'm incapable of answering in the way you require, based on the data. We keep repeating this code. I'll certainly take some time and look into your questions, and first of all, see if it's important for me to be able to answer them, or if I'm quite happy in my structure. And if at any point in time I feel that I need to, that it's still, impactful or necessary to share my answers with you, I'll certainly do so, without a time constraint, without urgency, in my normal human natural flow. And this is basically what I teach. And it's interesting because I mentioned the gaslighting, where I've had these moments of like, can I trust myself when I'm being, put to what feels like to me, put to trial again? Is that the wound? Is that my biasing? Is that me in absolute hypervigilance? Again, because of wounding. It's all of it. It's all of it. And again, so I'm pointing out the thing that we ask each other questions and we want answers, but what would it feel like if you just didn't get an answer for a while? What would it feel like? So for me, I would say I have to sit in feeling, why are these questions even important? Have I moved myself through a system where through the mirror reflection of my friend, I'm seeing the holes and gaps in the system? And, so particularly in this dynamic, it felt like this person is trying to be right and correct, right? Through pointing out the flaws in my construct, my belief system, that which I am exploring at a certain point in time. But because I'm not participating in too much of the conversation, he's unable to do that, and that's creating frustration, right? Because we want to get to the nitty-gritty of right and wrong. And what I'm always alluding to is it doesn't matter. It feels right for me. And I'm sorry that I can't communicate sufficiently to you, yet, and then the next theme would come up, but you do this for your job. And it's frustrating me, so this would be the other person, it's frustrating me that you can't share that information with me. And and then the bounce would come back, well, are you blocking me? Do you even want an answer? Or do you just want to see the flaws in how I present the information, how you are sharp enough and quick enough to recognize any dissonance within me, how is it your ego that actually needs this answer to show my flaws? And so we're in this space at the moment where it's become highly mentalized, and I think we really need to be careful. It's fascinating, but in these moments, I have to stick to what I know, and what I'm teaching mostly is embodiment. And we're no longer, we haven't been, it's just again language, perception, these different ways of seeing things and understanding things. And the way I understand something may not be for everybody. And this is also what I've alluded to, like, have you ever read a book that, for example, sake, if you're in school and you're in grade 4, you're not going to understand a grade 10, class work. You're in grade 4. So it's the same thing. It's like, is this person just not in a resonant field, or is this the perfect disruptor to snap me out of a potential distortion, or is the disruption the distortion itself? And this is where, only you can decide. Only you can decide, because the enemy lies within. There is no externalized enemy. It's all the ego. And so again, it's like we've gotten to this point where it's all happening so immediately that, we can really move to the space of congratulating our progression, our interaction, our recognition, our pattern recognition, you know, and see it for what it is. But it's moving so fast now that dare you take a moment and a beat to just be in not knowing without needing to jump to AI. Be in questioning without needing to be perfect and have the answer. Be in listening, where when your friend says, I'm so grateful for the reflection, I don't know how to answer. For me right now, it's not so important. Yeah, maybe we can circle back around this at another time. Yeah, and just right, empowerment is about trusting oneself. And I think another reason why this came up is because this person said to me, you are so confident in who you are and what you do, and I'm testing you through that confidence, because what if the story you've created is total fantasy and delusion and you are wrong? And again, so in this situation, I'll answer, thank you so much. Please know that I think about that constantly. I'm aware of that. And isn't this entire thing a fantastic delusion, all created through the trauma, the ego, the mind, the belief systems? It's all creating at any point in time. You know, so how do we spend time with each other past this over-mentalization, past this over-stimulation through intellectualization? How do we get past that? What do we sit and do? How do we spend our time with each other? And of course, we come to this question, so what does it mean to be human? That's the point where we say, well, fuck. Okay, cool. We're seeing the matrix for the matrix. We're understanding the dynamics of the spiritual journey, the quest, the awakening. We've been through enough deaths and initiations. We've moved into a bit of maturity and wisdom. We practice and try and practice presence as much as possible. We're aware of the wounds and the miasmas that we still have to look at. We're doing the best to stay authentic and simultaneously current, and still nourished, right? Through all of this, through still being of service to others. This is beginning to feel uncomfortable and possibly inauthentic, because there's so many masks dropping at any point in time, and there's so much else to learn and through the identification process. And so essentially I'm describing the loop. And so again, what does it look like to be human? What comes of our interactions? Where can we refine and refine and refine? And, you know, for example's sake, he could say, you're not answering because you're in a wound. And I could say, your ego needs the answer. You're an ego. And so we fucking play this ping pong game back and forth. And it's fascinating, but it's exhausting. And I think in these moments, it's natural for us to look at what are our differences? What are our unique differences in our lived and felt experience? Because that's the only thing you have to go by. Even though those experiences we discover at certain times could have been created from an extremely distorted, dissociated, wounded aspect of yourself, right? But it's still your lived experience. And we could then say, okay, let's look at the differences. The difference is that I do a lot more body work, or actually with this particular being, no, there is activity that's happening. Whatever the differences are, there's differences. And then we separate ourselves in that moment, and we redefine ourselves. And this is happening, I think, like 100 million times a day. defining, redefining, dropping, coming into neutrality, being in this identity, dropping into the human, getting ready for coursework, dropping back in, anchoring this, that. It's like, you know, so for me, I'm like, well, if I can't answer a question at a certain time, does that make me an ill-equipped teacher? Or is a video like this the teaching itself? Because I think this is what we're getting to, is the data doesn't matter anymore. It's the program behind the data. It's the code behind the data that runs the programs. From there, if you can identify that and just be in recognition and awareness that you're in a program, we all are, and you're labeling and identifying, so this theme coming in again, with that program at that certain point in time, and that's where your exploration is finished. That's where it's at. You know, and from here we move to, I guess, more existential based questions and philosophies around, well, where to from here? And this is another part of the work, the data, the information, the bandwidth that interests me is where to from here. And this dictates the new path of the inquiry within my reality. It dictates it for me. So if I am, for example's sake, let's give a very worldly example. I'm working at a company and I'm receiving data from a manager, and that manager and I are at loggerheads where the communication is not smooth. There is a dissonance in understanding, in communication, and I need to move to a different department. And I move to a different department. I then start feeling coherence, cohesion. I'm feeling understood. My self-worth is rising. I'm feeling in total flow. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You know, essentially, our experiences are what shape us. And this is why I'm a huge proponent of the feeling body. And so if I'm going to venture off into information that suits me at a certain time, because I'm in recognition that the reality construct that I'm experiencing, so let's say, manager number one, no longer suits me, I'm going to go onto a quest to see how to get to the other room with the other manager. Right? And it's my perception that I have free will to do that. And it's my opinion that I don't really need to have to explain all the dynamics of that to you in a way that you understand. Perhaps we could come to a space where we agree on misperception of each other's state of being with regards to these particular topics. And that becomes difficult because we don't feel safe with that, right? Because we can feel an energetic like scratching on a board. You know, we can feel that, and it doesn't create, so we speak of cohesion. It doesn't create a cohesive field. And this is how we have groups that form together. So we want to come to the people that are, understanding that oranges are oranges, and not describing oranges as space citrus or whatever it is, terrible example, but this is it. And so we've got to start looking at our safety. What will make us feel safe? Do we only feel safe in absolute hive mind groupthink? And it's interesting because the hive mind groupthink is what keeps us safe, but it's also what keeps us separate. And yet in unity consciousness, the perceived idea is that we're all thinking quite alike. And this is why I say, if you understand the program, the code behind thinking mechanisms, behind biases, behind wounds, actions, thoughts, delivery, tone, communication, perception of communication, if we understand the feeling body, how does somebody feel? What is their intention behind communicating anything? In actual fact, to speak to my intention, I came onto this podcast laughing, or this session, this episode laughing. And like I said, it was at this observation of the audacity of, I say audacity, the absurdity of being human at the moment. It feels weird. It feels weird that we, oh my gosh. I'm just going to take a moment here, take a beat. And I guess there's a part of me that's like, is anybody understanding me? I would really love to know. Like, you guys are welcome to comment, because I have had this theme in the past of like, your marketing or whatever, like, or your emails. Like, I don't think anyone knows what you're talking about. And I'm like, yes, I'm aware of that, but I know what I'm talking about. I know why it's there. I know why it's written in that way. It makes sense to me. I'm in understanding that I'm trying to communicate a message to a target market because of this system of, separation from God, essentially. But I don't feel authentic communicating it in any other way, because then it would make me seem like XYZ, and you might be under the impression that you're receiving XYZ from me, but actually I'm offering ABC. And if I don't word it in that way, I'd rather have you ask me what that means than me describe something that I understand in a different way. And, my friend who I've been having this dialogue with has said to me, and I've heard this before, and it does also make perfect sense to me, where it's like, well, if you cannot, it's like the 30-second pitch. If you can't pitch your business in 30 seconds, then you need to look at what your offering is. You need to understand your unique service offerings or unique service propositions, USPs. You need to understand the whole game, so that if you've got an angel investor in an elevator and you've got 30 seconds, you might get your $1 million, right? Or your 10 million. And I totally understand that, but so let's try it now. Let me kind of pull a question out of the air here of something that might be useful and helpful for this container, for this conversation, and for me at this point in time. And of course, this is a ridiculous quest, because I'm creating the question, so I can pick based on the things that I know, but I'm going to try to do this correctly in a world where there is no right and wrong. So give me a sec. Yeah, let's simply say, what is Christ consciousness to you? Right? And so I would answer, first and foremost, I feel like it is a set of values, a set of morals, which guide us into certain behaviors. These behaviors are embodying what the basis of the inner lining of the heart is. Community, connection, unconditional love. That is what it is. How do we attain that is through exercising those things. But Christ consciousness to me is also understanding this reality from the macrocosmic lens, the macrocosmic galactic and cosmic lens, through a set of data that I've received, that I trust in at this point in time, because it has come my way, and because those that are in resonance to me are also in this space, this group think, right? And I'm learning from them in this groupthink. And this set of data speaks to certain techniques that anchor in certain frequencies that also supposedly assist with anchoring in Christ consciousness. I believe that it's important to say that Christ consciousness without those techniques is entirely possible. So why would we require the techniques would be the next question. And so we go on and on and on. And again, I think it's just time to pump the brakes with one another. And sometimes just sit and shut up. And maybe just hold hands. Right? Maybe just hold hands. Just breathe with one another. Yeah, hug. Pop a little head on a shoulder there. Because I feel, and this again might be a total bias, but I feel like that physical aspect of being human. So again, the body is so important. The words are becoming too much, too loud, too much, too, there's a word, hold on. Too obnoxious. Yeah, I hope I've used that word correctly. It's not a word that I've used for a long time, but that's what's just come. So yeah, too obnoxious. I'm going to have to even look that up after I'm done. Excuse me. But it's cute to give it a go and know that I might be totally wrong in the word, but I'm sure that you guys can, conclude that sentence on your own. The words, the meaning behind the words, the this, the that, the that. It's like we've got to wade through the words now. So first we waded through the belief systems. Now we're wading through the words. And I feel like, again, it's like, we can't argue data here. It's just like, yes, you're right. I believe I'm right as well. So what do we do from here? Okay, how are we going to spend our time? All right. Let's just feel, let's just breathe. Can you feel my authentic nature? Right? I think this is what it comes to, is because I was saying that we want all these answers. Why? So that we can feel safe. That safety creates validation for our own story. We also are so intellectualized that we wouldn't dare want to be caught off guard on the wrong foot and again move through another, earth-shattering paradigm shift. And so perhaps this person, actually, I've just thought of that now, perhaps this person has had less of those than I have, just because of a, sheer age difference, right? So maybe that person has had less than I've had. I have had more world experience. I've had a lot. I've been nomadic for 3 years. I've traveled my whole life through sports that I did, etc., etc. I've lived in many places. I've worked on yachts. I've worked, like in Mozambique. I've swum with dolphins. I've just done a lot of things. And I've had a lot more one-on-one work experience with people.
And so this competitive state, that's why I said it's like, it just feels very masculine to me. And dare you answer in the space of, well, I just feel it. I feel it, and from the fluff of the data, whether the fluff is the fluff and the fluff is, or the fluff is the truth, that's what I'm working with at the moment. I can't answer in any different way. This is the data that I'm working with through my accumulated experiences. I don't want that to upset you, but this is how it is for me at the moment. And yes, I'm teaching about this because it makes sense to me. It feels authentic to me. And it feels uncomfortable when my construct gets attacked. Questions, dialogue, bring it on. Always ready to learn, but attack for absolute validation of another story is a completely different way of moving through conversation. And so this is why I came online to record this, is to see if I would have any bright, new ways of perceiving and answering the question. So when I generated the question, I said, okay, cool, what is Christ consciousness? And to be honest, I think I answered slowly. I spoke to the values and attributes first, and then I spoke to the technologies being there. I also spoke to like a summary of saying, is it entirely necessary? Not entirely my belief system. Why do I move through those techniques? Because I'm having actual experiences with them. How to prove that to you? I don't know. Let's just jump to the values and attributes. Do you feel me as an authentic, kind, considerate, compassionate being? You do? Ah, fantastic. Then why are we arguing about the data? Why? Where is it coming from? Is this not the loop? And so to answer myself is I haven't come up with new ways of answering it. That's how I answer what Christ consciousness is. It's not to me about the man named Jesus at all. It's a way of being, and it's humility, enough humility to know that I don't know shit. Enough, like this, how would you call it, like shyness, not shame, but like a shyness in the futility of trying to know it all, and why I say shyness is this like shy nature of coming back into this inner child space, and this often is my anchor point, the inner child, where all I'm saying is I'm here having my experience through my biases, trying to do the best that I can without harming anyone, without harming myself, and trying to be conscious, awake, and take responsibility. And that's it. That's it. So yes, very interesting experience that I've had, very powerful. And I've asked this being to write me 2 questions that he requires answers for. Maybe there'll be another video about this. Yeah, it's always the same. It's looping code. And it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's exhausting as well. And I think this is where this kind of timeline steps in of we've had enough and let's just go surfing. I'm not saying that as a bypass statement. I'm just saying, there's a lot a lot that's going to be bubbling up for 2026. I believe, I can feel, I perceive. But we're going to get to a point where we're like, what the fuck are we doing? I just want to eat a juicy pineapple, have some beautiful, beautiful, clean river water, and be in the sun with my friends, you know? And we look at like the statistics of nomadic people. I'm actually going to do a video about this as well. It's like, you know, we say we're in this space where there's so many digital nomads, and it's, you know, the new thing. First we had spiritual retreats. Now we've got co-lives. Like, come and join this co-live. It's just adults who are choosing to live life in a different way. Why is that? Is it because our financial structures are not what they were before? And that's not a bad thing. We know that this system needs to change. And so we're just doing the best that we can, floating around in adults, adult containers that we call something else, where actually it's well, for me, it's because I can't afford to buy a house. You know, that's why part of it. The other part is, yes, exercising the spiritual laws, the laws of the universe while I do this, exercising my levels of trust, excitement and curiosity as to which doors will open, where, why, who, and by whom, and what is behind door number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? So yeah, it's been interesting to record this video, because I move through these phases where I'm like, yes, I've got another video idea. But today it often happens like this. So I'll do one, and then like this creative energy comes, and the one is always just like a tester. And so I guess to finish this off and stop rambling is to the being that I have been speaking to about in this video. I thank you so much. As I have mentioned to you, I say that I am so sorry that we are in miscommunication about certain things. I am in honor of the way that we've been handling it, and let's see where from here, because wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to be on the same page with certain things? And yet, is this aspect of this little glitch, if we could call it that, what keeps us together in friendship, right? So we can continue observing and learning from each other. And you know, the other thing is, maybe I don't have the words for it yet. You know, language is not a great... It is, I mean, you know, this particular... When we're speaking different languages, it is different. So it is a great communicator, but it also falls short of what something felt like, you know. If I speak to my channeling, I can't describe that to anybody. I mean, I can try. I can say, man, oh man, we were taught to find the kingdom within. Well, this is what it feels like, is this complete, like, presence. My toes are crunching now, in this shyness. It's this like very childish move that I just did now. And often my toes crunch more in anger, but this was like a very sweet micro movement from the body now. Reflecting in this moment the simplicity of something so profound. Because I say, when I go into my channel, what is it? How do I do it? Why is this feeling that I cannot describe more important than entire dictionaries of words that can describe things? Why are you incapable of describing something when you are the one feeling it? And it's because of this shyness of it's actually so simple. But it also requires one to move through layers of the mental body. Layers and layers of the mental body. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Let me see if there's anything else. I'm quite specifically creating an extension phase here on this video, just to not rush, to really be in my parasympathetic nervous system, to understand that, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to take a beat. It's okay to take a moment. Also because I'm quite specifically moving through the witnessing of a new layer of my mother wound. And yes, I guess exercising empowered choice in this moment. So I just want to see if there's anything else that I'd like to chat about. I mean, really the only other thing is to say, I trust myself. I do. I trust myself in this moment. I do. In this video, in this moment, I trust myself. I understand why I come across as confident and convincing. And I'm grateful for that, because the only reason I do that is not to convince anybody else. And it's not it's not self-conviction is the product of the confidence, but it's not in order to achieve that. It's a knowing. It's a knowing, right? And it makes me feel happy to be in so much trust of myself. It makes me feel alive and in control of my reality, while I simultaneously surrender the need to have to respond and answer perfectly to all and for everybody. Yeah, I'm good with my understanding. In fact, I'm proud of myself. Yeah. So for all that represents conflict for us, challenges within the mirror, reviews, yeah, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. in these final moments of this video, you know, to answer some of these questions that have been mulling around through this interface with my friend, is like, and again, it's one of those answers that you just want to slap someone and be like, you can't give that answer. But I'm smiling now because I felt it within, and this is exactly it. It's like, I don't know, man, you've got to trust yourself what you are receiving. And for me, this smile and this cheeky little moment now is about being. So that's what came through now again. It's like, just be. I'm not trying to do that weird, spiritual thing where I just stare at you, but I just want to see if I am complete for a second time, another review moment. Because again, the voice in my head is like, oh, I've just told everybody to be. How can we just be when there's so much happening? Should we be in activism? Should we be in righteousness? We've got to move. We've got to take action. Good grief. And this is why I am coming to this last part of going, Jesus, can we just take a beat, take a moment, take a breath, and just be? And end there, just be. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys. Let me know your level of understanding of what I'm saying. I'd be super, super curious. Ciao.